The 2014 Dallas Cowboys. The 2014 Cowboys weren't just talented, they finally looked like the team that could bring the Lombardi Trophy back to Dallas. Built behind one of the greatest offensive lines of the modern era, they could dominate games without relying on flashy plays. DeMarco Murray led the NFL with over 1,800 rushing yards, Tony Romo played the best football of his career, and Dez Bryant was one of the league's most dangerous receivers. At 12-4, this wasn't the same Cowboys team fans had grown used to watching fall apart in December. This group looked complete, and for the first time in a long time, a Super Bowl felt realistic. That belief only grew after Dallas walked into Seattle and handed the defending champion Seahawks one of their few home losses. If they could beat the Legion of Boom in one of the loudest stadiums in football, why couldn't they beat anyone? Then came the divisional round against Green Bay. Every NFL fan remembers what happened next. On fourth down, Tony Romo launched a pass toward Dez Bryant, who leaped over the defender, secured the ball, and stretched for the goal line. Cowboys fans erupted, believing they had just witnessed the play that would keep their championship hopes alive. Minutes later, after a replay review, the catch was overturned. No catch. Turnover on downs. Whether you believe Dez caught it or not, that single play became the defining image of the 2014 Cowboys. A team that looked built to win the Super Bowl saw its season end in controversy, and more than a decade later, they're still remembered as one of the greatest Cowboys teams that never even made it to football's biggest stage. 1998 Minnesota Vikings. The 1998 Vikings had one of the most explosive offenses the NFL had ever seen. Rookie Randy Moss completely changed the way defenses played. Chris Carter continued to dominate. Randall Cunningham enjoyed a career revival, and Minnesota scored a then-record 556 points on its way to a 15-1 season. They didn't just win games, they overwhelmed teams. By the time the playoffs arrived, most fans expected the Vikings to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Standing in their way was the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Championship game, and for most of the afternoon, everything was going according to plan. Then came one of the most shocking moments in NFL history. Gary Anderson, who hadn't missed a single field goal or extra point all season, lined up for a kick that would have all but sealed the victory. Instead, he pushed it wide left. The Falcons stormed back, forced overtime, and ended Minnesota's dream with a game-winning field goal of their own. Sometimes one play becomes bigger than an entire season. For the 1998 Vikings, it was Anderson's miss. Even after putting together one of the greatest offensive seasons football has ever seen, they're remembered as the team that was just one kick away from the Super Bowl, and one of the greatest what-ifs in NFL history. 2024 Detroit Lions. For the first time in decades, the Detroit Lions weren't just a feel-good story. They were legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Dan Campbell had completely transformed the culture, turning a franchise known for heartbreak into one of the toughest teams in football. Jared Goff was playing some of the best football of his career. Amon-Ra St. Brown had become one of the NFL's elite receivers. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery formed a dangerous backfield, and one of the league's best offensive lines gave Detroit the ability to control games. After years of disappointment, Lions fans finally believed their wait was over. That belief only grew during the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. Detroit stormed out to a 24-7 halftime lead and looked well on its way to the franchise's first Super Bowl appearance. But everything unraveled in the second half. A dropped fourth down conversion, a miraculous catch off a defender's face mask by Brandon Ayuk, costly turnovers, and San Francisco's momentum completely flipped the game. Before Lions fans could process what was happening, the lead was gone. For a franchise that's experienced more heartbreak than almost any other, this one may have hurt the most. The 2024 Lions proved they were good enough to win a championship, but instead of celebrating a trip to the Super Bowl, they'll always be remembered for letting a 17-point lead slip away when they were just 30 minutes from football's biggest stage. 1999 Jacksonville Jaguars. The 1999 Jaguars don't get talked about nearly enough when discussing the greatest teams to never reach the Super Bowl. Jacksonville finished an incredible 14-2, boasted the league's #1 ranked defense, and had a balanced offense led by Mark Brunell, Fred Taylor, Jimmy Smith, and Keenan McCardle. They dominated almost everyone they faced, earning home field advantage and looking every bit like a team destined to win the AFC. There's just one unbelievable catch. Both of their regular season losses came against the Tennessee Titans. Still, most people believed Jacksonville would finally get over the hump if the two teams met again in the AFC Championship game. Instead, history repeated itself. Tennessee jumped out early, forced turnovers, and completely took the Jaguars out of their game. Jacksonville's season ended with a 33-14 loss, and in one of the strangest seasons the NFL has ever seen, all three of their losses came against the exact same team. That's what makes the 1999 Jaguars so unforgettable. Against the other 30 teams in the league, they were practically unbeatable, finishing 14-0. But they simply couldn't solve their biggest rival. It's one of the cruelest twists in NFL history and remains one of the greatest what-if seasons the league has ever seen. 2006 San Diego Chargers. At the peak of LaDainian Tomlinson's career, the 2006 Chargers looked like the best team in football. Tomlinson rushed for a then NFL record 31 total touchdowns, won league MVP, and powered San Diego to a 14-2 record. But this team was far more than just one superstar. Phillip Rivers had successfully taken over at quarterback. Antonio Gates remained one of the NFL's most dangerous tight ends. Sean Merriman terrorized opposing quarterbacks, and the Chargers finished with the AFC's best record. From top to bottom, they had one of the most complete rosters of the 2000s. Their playoff run came to an abrupt halt against Tom Brady and the Patriots in the divisional round, but it wasn't Brady who delivered the game's defining moment. Late in the fourth quarter, Chargers defensive back Marlon McCree intercepted what looked like the game-clinching pass. Instead of going down, he tried to return it, only to have the ball stripped away by New England. The Patriots recovered, took advantage of the second chance, and completed another improbable comeback. If you're enjoying these deep dives into NFL history, make sure to subscribe because we've got plenty more football documentaries just like this, covering the greatest teams, players, rivalries, and moments the game has ever seen. For Chargers fans, the McCree fumble is still one of the most painful plays in franchise history. A team that looked destined to reach the Super Bowl watched its championship dreams disappear in a single instant. Despite boasting the league's MVP, a loaded defense, and the NFL's best record, the 2006 Chargers remain one of the most talented teams to never make it to football's biggest game. 2018 New Orleans Saints. The 2018 Saints had everything you could ask for in a championship team. Drew Brees was still playing at an elite level. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram formed one of the NFL's best running back duos. Michael Thomas had become nearly unstoppable. And New Orleans paired its explosive offense with one of the best defenses of the Sean Payton era. After finishing 13-3 and earning home field advantage, it finally looked like Brees was on his way to a second Super Bowl. Then came the NFC Championship game against the Rams. With less than 2 minutes remaining and the Saints already in field goal range, Brees fired a pass to Tommy Lee Lewis near the sideline. Before the ball arrived, Rams cornerback Nickel Roby Coleman leveled Lewis with a hit that every fan in the stadium immediately recognized as pass interference. There was just one problem. The flag never came. Instead of getting a fresh set of downs that would have allowed them to run out the clock, the Saints were forced to settle for a field goal. Los Angeles answered, forced overtime, and ended New Orleans' season. Simply calling it the no call is enough for every NFL fan to know exactly what you're talking about. The missed penalty sparked outrage across the league, even leading to a temporary rule allowing pass interference calls to be reviewed. But for Saints fans, no rule change could erase the damage. The 2018 Saints are remembered as one of the greatest teams to never reach the Super Bowl, all because of one officiating decision that still fuels debate today. 1995 Kansas City Chiefs. The 1995 Chiefs were built to win with defense, and they did it better than almost anyone. Kansas City finished 13-3 with the AFC's best record, led the NFL in scoring defense, and featured future Hall of Famers Derek Thomas and Neil Smith wreaking havoc on opposing quarterbacks. Marty Schottenheimer had assembled a physical, disciplined team that rarely beat itself, and with home field advantage throughout the playoffs, many believed the Chiefs were finally ready to return to the Super Bowl for the first time in over 2 decades. Their divisional round matchup against the Colts quickly turned into one of the strangest playoff games ever played. Despite completely controlling the game defensively, Kansas City's offense couldn't capitalize. Quarterback Steve Bono struggled, the Chiefs failed to score a touchdown, and kicker Lynn Elliott delivered a performance that fans still wish they could forget. Elliott missed 3 field goals, including 2 from inside 50 yards, while the Colts escaped Arrowhead with a shocking 10-7 victory. Sometimes a single player's worst day comes at the worst possible time. For Chiefs fans, Lynn Elliott's 3 missed kicks became the lasting image of a team that looked talented enough to win it all. Despite having one of the NFL's most dominant defenses, the 1995 Chiefs remain one of the greatest teams to never reach the Super Bowl, proving once again championship-caliber rosters can see their season end in the most unexpected ways. 2017 Pittsburgh Steelers. On paper, the 2017 Steelers looked like a team that had finally put all the pieces together. Ben Roethlisberger was still one of the NFL's toughest quarterbacks. Le'Veon Bell had become the league's most complete running back, and Antonio Brown was arguably the best receiver in football. The Killer Bees offense could score from anywhere on the field, while a defense led by Cameron Hayward, T.J. Watt, and Ryan Shazier looked ready to carry Pittsburgh back to the Super Bowl. After finishing 13-3 and securing the AFC's second seed, many believed this was the year the Steelers would finally challenge New England for conference supremacy. Instead, they never even got the chance. The Jacksonville Jaguars marched into Heinz Field and stunned Pittsburgh in one of the highest-scoring playoff games in NFL history. Leonard Fournette ran through the Steelers' defense. Blake Bortles played one of the best games of his career. And before fans could catch their breath, Jacksonville had built a lead Pittsburgh couldn't overcome. Roethlisberger threw for more than 450 yards and 5 touchdowns trying to pull off another miracle. But the comeback fell short as the Jaguars held on for a shocking 45-42 victory. For many fans, that loss marked the end of an era. The Killer Bees never reached a Super Bowl together. And not long after, injuries, contract disputes, and roster changes tore apart one of the most talented offenses of the decade. Looking back, the 2017 Steelers are remembered as one of the NFL's biggest missed opportunities, a team loaded with star power that somehow never made it to football's biggest. 1986 Cleveland Browns. For years, the Cleveland Browns were one of the AFC's premier teams, and the 1986 season looked like the one that would finally end the franchise's championship drought. Bernie Kosar had developed into one of football's brightest young quarterbacks. The Browns finished 12-4 to earn the AFC's top seed, and Cleveland's balanced roster had all the makings of a Super Bowl team. With home field advantage and the dog pound creating one of the loudest atmospheres in the league, it felt like the Browns were finally on the verge of history. Then came the AFC Championship game against John Elway and the Denver Broncos. Leading late in the fourth quarter, Cleveland was just 5 minutes away from its first Super Bowl appearance. That's when Elway took over. Starting at his own 2-yard line, he engineered a legendary 98-yard drive that ended with the game-tying touchdown, a sequence forever known simply as the drive. Denver went on to win in overtime, ending Cleveland's magical season in heartbreaking fashion. You don't even have to say the drive to most football fans. They already know exactly what game you're talking about. One unforgettable series changed the course of 2 franchises. Instead of celebrating their greatest season, the 1986 Browns became another chapter in Cleveland's long history of heartbreak, remembered as one of the most talented teams to come agonizingly close to the Super Bowl without ever getting there. 1984 Seattle Seahawks. The 1984 Seahawks proved their surprise run the year before was no fluke. Coming off their first AFC Championship appearance in franchise history, Seattle doubled down with another outstanding season, finishing 12-4 behind quarterback Dave Krieg, bruising running back Kurt Warner, and one of the NFL's toughest defenses. The Seahawks could beat teams with explosive plays on offense or by shutting them down defensively. And by the time the playoffs arrived, they looked capable of becoming the first Seattle team to reach the Super Bowl. After cruising past the Raiders in the wild-card round, Seattle earned a rematch with the Miami Dolphins in the divisional playoffs. The Seahawks had already beaten Miami earlier that season, giving fans every reason to believe they could do it again. But Dan Marino had other plans. The future Hall of Famer picked apart Seattle's defense, throwing for over 260 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Dolphins pulled away for a 31-10 victory, ending the Seahawks' championship hopes far earlier than anyone expected. The 1984 Seahawks are often overshadowed by some of the NFL's more famous teams that fell short, but they deserve to be remembered alongside them. They had the talent, the momentum, and the confidence to make a serious Super Bowl run, yet they ran into one of the greatest quarterbacks the game has ever seen. For Seahawks fans, they'll always be remembered as one of the franchise's earliest championship-caliber teams that came up just short. That wraps up Part 1, our list of some of the most stacked NFL teams that never made it to the Super Bowl, either by controversial calls, legendary performances, heartbreaking mistakes, or simply running into the wrong opponent at the wrong time. But one thing they all have in common is that fans still remember them years later, not for what they accomplished, but for what could have been. If you enjoyed this deep dive into NFL history, be sure to subscribe for more documentaries covering legendary teams, unforgettable players, iconic rivalries, and the greatest moments the game has ever seen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.